I, B.N. Upadhyay of Kendra Vidyalaya Kimin, welcome all the students of class 12 to the video lesson of Indigo. Do you know what is indigo? Yes, it's a color, and perhaps you know that indigo is also used to dye our clothes to give a good look. And indigo is planted. It's a plant. From plant we get the product indigo that we use to dye clothes. So this chapter that we are going to study is related to Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation, and the place referred to here in this chapter is Champaran. It describes about the Champaran episode of Gandhi's life, and this was the beginning of the end of fear. The end of fear of the peasants, the common man, the common Indians. This is our author, Louis Fischer. Let us know something about the author, Louis Fischer, born 1896, died 1970. He was born in Philadelphia. He served as a volunteer in the British Army between 1918 and 1920. Fischer made a career as a journalist and wrote for the New York Times, the Saturday Review, and for European and Asian publications. He was also a member of the faculty of Princeton University. The following is an excerpt from his book, The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. This means the chapter that we are going to study, Indigo, is just an excerpt from Louis Fischer's book, The Life of Mahatma Gandhi. The book has been reviewed as one of the best books ever written on Gandhi by Times Educational Supplement. The place that is mentioned, that is the center in this chapter, is Champaran. This chapter actually describes about the Champaran episode of Gandhi's life. See the location of Champaran in the map. It is in Bihar and near to Nepal. Here are some of the places related to various movements of Gandhi. Perhaps you heard about Chauri Chaura, that's in UP, Khera, Ahmedabad, okay, Amritsar. Plight of farmer. This picture describes about the plight, the suffering, trouble of the indigo farmer who grew indigo. Sweat and blood. They gave their sweat and blood to plant indigo, but the main profit was for the British. See the condition of the farmers, the peasants. Indigo planting made the soil infertile. Problems faced by Champaran farmers. As I said, Champaran farmers were forced to grow indigo. They were forced to grow indigo on 15% of their land. Most land was owned by Englishmen. Peasants tortured and troubled. Peasants were tortured and troubled by the landlords. Germany developed synthetic indigo, so indigo plantation was no more profitable to the British. That's why the British tried to get profit by asking the peasants to pay compensation for being released from the 15% agreement. The British played a trick. They wanted profit by getting 15% agreement, okay, by getting compensation from the peasants for the 15% agreement, and their another motto was to get synthetic indigo as it was profitable. So they played a trick. They asked for compensation from the peasants to make them free from the 15% agreement. When realization dawned, sharecroppers wanted to be released from the 15% agreement. Let us have an insight into the life of indigo sharecroppers. 1916, when the chapter begins, we get this year, 1916. It was a historical year. Rajkumar Shukla, a peasant from Champaran, met Gandhi in annual convention of the Indian National Congress in Lucknow. He was a poor farmer and a sharecropper who came from Champaran. He wanted Gandhi to come to his district, but Gandhiji had never heard of the place which was near Nepal in Bihar. That means Champaran was near Nepal in Bihar. Gandhiji had not heard about this place earlier. Determination of Shukla. That means Rajkumar Shukla was a determined person. Okay, he was resolute. Gandhi was busy with other appointments. Shukla did not give up. Seeing that Gandhi was busy, Shukla did not give up but followed Gandhi everywhere. He begged Gandhi to fix a date. Gandhi was impressed by his determination and agreed to visit Champaran. Firstly, they went to Patna to meet Rajendra Prasad. The arrival of Mashiha. See children, Gandhi is referred to as Masiha. Masiha means savior. Okay, savior for the poor peasants who were in miserable situation. The journey began. Gandhi went to Muzaffarpur to obtain complete information. Professor J.B. Kriplani waited at the station with a number of students. Gandhi stayed for 2 days in the house of Professor Malkani. Indians were afraid to show sympathy for advocates of home rule. Okay, the common Indians were just afraid to show sympathy to advocate of home rule, those who were supporters of home rule. And it really shows that now there was bit consciousness among the common people as number of students came with J.B. Kriplani to the station to welcome Gandhi, and Professor Malkani, he uh, made Gandhi stay in his house. The old Motihari Junction where Gandhiji came for Champaran Satyagraha. See this picture, the condition of the junction, old Motihari Junction. And here it's a manuscript by Mahatma Gandhi which describes his visit and where he stayed. House of Gorakh Prasad, advocate, where Gandhiji stayed first time during Champaran Satyagraha. The news spread. The news of Gandhi's arrival spread quickly through Muzaffarpur and then to Champaran. Sharecroppers from Champaran arrived on foot to meet their champion. Muzaffarpur lawyers were called on by Gandhiji to brief him. Gandhiji chided the lawyers for collecting big fees from the poor sharecroppers. The beginning of first Satyagraha. Gandhiji met the secretary of the British Landlords Association, but he did not give him any information. Gandhiji met the commissioner, who only bullied him and advised him to leave the place. Gandhiji did not leave, rather proceeded to Motihari, the capital of Champaran, where a huge crowd greeted him at the station. A peasant had been maltreated in a nearby village where Gandhi went on the back of an elephant. See, Gandhiji addressing the peasants. Such a huge crowd Gandhiji was addressing. He was asked to return to the town and was served with a notice to quit Champaran immediately. Gandhiji made it clear that he would disobey the order, and so he received a summons to appear in court the next day. All night he remained awake and wired a full report to the viceroy. The next morning, thousands of peasants demonstrated to support Gandhi, and it was the beginning of their liberation from fear of the British. The officials felt helpless, so Gandhiji helped them to regulate the crowd. Gandhiji refused to leave Champaran despite the government's order. The voice of conscience. The government was baffled and the authorities wanted to postpone the trial. Gandhiji told the court that he was involved in a conflict of duties. It was his duty not to set a bad example as a lawbreaker. On the other hand, he was to do justice to thousands of poor sharecroppers. He disregarded the order to leave. Gandhiji had full respect for lawful authority, but in the end, he heard the voice of conscience. The court did not deliver the judgment for several days. So, meanwhile, Gandhiji was allowed to remain at liberty. Battle of Champaran won. Rajendra Prasad and many other prominent lawyers had arrived from Bihar and conferred with Gandhi. What would they do if Gandhi was sent to jail? The lawyers decided to follow him to jail. Gandhiji exclaimed, "The Battle of Champaran is won." Several days after, the lieutenant governor of the province had ordered the case to be dropped. Thus, civil disobedience movement had won the first time in modern India. Commission of Inquiry. Gandhi had 4 interviews with the lieutenant governor. He appointed an official commission of inquiry into indigo sharecroppers' situation. Gandhi was the sole representative of the peasants. He remained in Champaran for more than 7 months. There were many evidences against the landlords. They had illegally extorted money from the sharecroppers. Gandhi asked for 50%. The planters offered only 25%. Gandhi agreed. The deadlock was broken. Social work in Champaran. Gandhi saw the cultural and social backwardness in the Champaran villages and he wanted to do something about it immediately. Mahadev Desai and Narhari Parikh, 2 young men, joined Gandhi as disciples and their wives also volunteered for the war. Many more came from Bombay, Pune and other distant parts. Gandhiji's son Devdas also joined them. Primary schools were opened in 6 villages where Kasturba taught cleanliness and sanitation. A turning point in Gandhi's life. The Champaran episode was a turning point in Gandhi's life. It did not begin as an act of defiance but was an attempt to alleviate the distress of the poor peasants. Gandhi tried to mold new free Indian and wanted him to stand on his own feet and thus make India free. Some people wanted C.F. Andrews to stay in Champaran and help them, but Gandhi opposed it. He did not want that Indians should take the help of an Englishman in their own struggle for freedom, and in this way he taught them self-reliance. Here is the assignment for you. Strike out what is not true in the following. Number A. Rajkumar Shukla was 1. A sharecropper, 2. A politician, 3. Delegate, 4. A landlord. What will be the answer? Rajkumar Shukla was a sharecropper. Okay. Number B. Rajkumar Shukla was, first option, poor, second, physically strong, third, illiterate. What will be the answer? He was poor, isn't it? He was a poor sharecropper. Why is Rajkumar Shukla described as being resolute? Okay, this answer you do yourself and please send the answers to me in my WhatsApp number. Why do you think the servants thought Gandhi to be another peasant? Why do you think the servants of Rajendra Prasad thought Gandhi to be another peasant? They thought like this because Gandhi was in simple dress. You know already the dress of Gandhi. Okay, they thought he was in this dress and he was with a peasant, okay, whom they know already. So they thought that Gandhi was also a peasant. List the places that Gandhi visited between his first meeting with Shukla and his arrival at Champaran. You mention the places. What did the peasants pay the British landlords as rent? They paid their cultivation, isn't one third of their land they cultivated indigo, and they uh, paid, okay, they gave the entire cultivation of indigo as rent. What did the British now want instead, and why? British now wanted compensation from the peasants to make them free from the 15% agreement. And why? Because the British thought that synthetic indigo was much profitable than growing indigo. What would be the impact of synthetic indigo on the prices of natural indigo? Okay, you please think about this question and answer yourself. Why did Gandhi agree to a 25% refund to the farmers? Oh, actually, the demand was of 50%. But why did Gandhi agreed? Why did Gandhi agree to 25%? Because Gandhi wanted to end the deadlock. Okay. How did the episode change the plight of the peasants? They learned the lesson of self-reliance. Okay. They were able to get out of their fear. With this, thank you very much. I hope all of you have enjoyed the video, and in the next we'll discuss more about this lesson. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.